We're now coming on to final for an ILS approach. I think we're close enough, so we will engage approach. That's now on, and we can see the aircraft is reacting immediately, and on our PFD our glide slope is active. And the great thing, of course, it only took us a few minutes to configure all of this. This is all made possible by one of the most versatile and configurable controllers for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Meet the smaller companion to the Loupedeck Live. It's the Loupedeck Live S. Welcome to the Sim Hangar. My name's Mark. Thank you very much for watching, and let's get started. It's a compact device and only requires one USB-C connector to your PC. It features 15 touch-sensitive buttons with haptic feedback, 2 analog dials with push function, 4 tactile RGB buttons, and the best news of all, a plug-in for Microsoft Flight Simulator. The supplied cable is of good quality and about 2 meters in length. It's USB-C to USB-C, but if you don't have a spare USB-C on your PC, no worries, as an adapter is supplied for standard USB. It comes with a quick start guide. The overall impression is one of quality. It's built to last. And it comes with a small stand which is attached to the back, which puts the Loupedeck at about a 45-degree angle or so, which is very convenient for using it as part of your cockpit setup. And that's it, simple and straightforward. The Loupedeck Live S, of course, is the smaller companion to the Loupedeck Live, which I've already shown on this channel. The only significant difference is the number of rotary dials and push buttons available. The Loupedeck Live is £229 list price, and the Loupedeck Live S somewhat less expensive at £179. First impressions may be that's still a bit steep, but both these units are highly configurable, and there's very little you can't do with the Loupedeck. To fully understand all the aspect, setup, configuration options available for the Loupedeck, please check out some of my previous videos, links in the notes below. In those videos I go into detail on how to use the plugin, which is a drag and drop application, and we'll be looking at that more later on in the video. And for those of you that want to take it further, you can configure keystrokes directly, and for the more complex requirements, it can be programmed using SpadNext. Once you've installed the software and connected the Loupedeck Live S, this is what you'll see. Designed initially for streaming, like the Stream Deck, it comes with a number of pre-installed apps. On the right-hand side is our menu, covering the apps as well as system and Loupedeck requirements. Select an icon, then a folder. Open the folder, and there are a number of actions that can be applied to the Loupedeck, and it's simply a drag and drop exercise. But for simming, we're not really interested in all that. As part of the initial install, it will update automatically, and I'm currently using the version as indicated on screen. Before going any further, let's just understand how to navigate. The physical Loupedeck device shows exactly what's on the PC. Here you'll see there's multiple pages. We can click on the pages to navigate from one to the other, and on each page the buttons and dials can be separately configured, so you're not likely to run short. Although you only have 2 rotary dials physically, you can reassign as needed. If the application has been configured, you can use the buttons to navigate as well, but one of the most useful features is it supports a swipe. Just move your finger left or right, and you can change pages as needed. Couldn't be easier. You can add pages both horizontally and also vertically being for the dials, as shown in my previous video. To find applications, plugins, etc., we're going to select the marketplace shown on the top right hand side. There's a wealth of applications available. What we're looking for is plugins. I'm just going to page down. I'm looking for Microsoft Flight Simulator plugin. There it is, and it's from the third-party developer Calibex. Thank you, Calibex, and it's free of charge. To select, click on Install. If you go to the official Microsoft Flight Simulator community forums and type in Calibex, you'll see there's a fair amount of information there from Calibex directly answering questions and posting and advising updates, etc. The download is relatively small, it's quickly installed, the install was successful, we're ready to go. We can now close this window and head over to our Profiles tab, and the Microsoft Flight Simulator plugin should be there. There it is. Selected that to make it active. On the right hand side we can see various folders. The Loupedeck application has an annoying habit of hiding just what you want to see. I'm hiding all the other applications because we're not interested in those. And now the plugin has been installed, and making sure that one's highlighted, we can now have a look in the folders to see what's there. Before you do start configuring, it's always a good idea just to make sure that there's nothing pre-configured to the Loupedeck Live S, which there isn't in this case. We're good to go. I'm not going to overwrite the blank default profile, could be handy in the future, so I'm going to select Add New Empty Profile and we'll build on that. Select that and it will come up and ask us to give that profile a new identity or new name. I'm just going to call it Tester for now, and then we select OK. I can see it's inserted a few default assignments, but by selecting the item, then the 3 dots, we can unassign or delete, so that our profile is completely clear. We don't want to risk conflicts. That's it, they're all gone. Let's now head back over to the right hand side and see what the plugin has in store for us. The folder names give us a general guide of what to expect. AP is autopilot. We have one called folders, lights, miscellaneous and navigation. Now selected the autopilot folder, and here are the assignable actions. Those indicated by the rotating arrow, they're assigned to your dials, and those icons with finger on button, yep, you guessed it, those are assignable to your buttons. And as you can see as we skip through, there's a fairly wide variety of different options available that can be used as drag and drop. It should be noted, however, that this plugin is hard-coded, it's in C#, it can't be edited, and it uses the Microsoft Flight Simulator default assignments. I've now opened the directory called folder, and within this folder are an array of multiple configurations, and these work slightly differently to the normal drag and drop. Let's take a look. The colors on the physical Loupedeck device are clear and vibrant. You'll have to forgive my dodgy photography. I've grabbed one of the folders, lights, placed it on a button, and it appears on the Loupedeck device. Press that button and it displays a whole subdirectory of lights. This includes navigation, beacon light, strobes and so on. The up arrow will simply return you to the main directory. So folders operate differently in this plugin as opposed to individual drag and drop items. Let's now unassign this and let's get on and configure our Loupedeck for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'm on page 1 of the Loupedeck, as you can see, and I'm going to stay with lights to demonstrate the drag and drop functionality. From the right hand menu I select beacon lights and I can drop it onto any of the buttons. Let's now go and select our navigation lights. What comes next? Let's select taxi, put those next to that, then strobe lights, and we'll finish off with landing lights. Now we've got a fair selection of lights. We could of course expand this, but it's enough to demonstrate. Any aircraft using the default configurations or mappings can now be controlled from this page. We're now going to configure a basic autopilot, so I'm going to create another page horizontally so I can swipe and scroll across. There we are, we're now on page 2. Going to go up to the autopilot folder and see what selections are available to me there. Okay, so on page 2, let's build our basic autopilot. Makes sense to start with the master auto switch, and I can allocate this to any button, including the RGB buttons. I'm going to allocate it here. I'm going to use the color dropper to change the color of the button. And you see the color on the physical Loupedeck changes as well. So my master autopilot, done. Next, I think I'm going to select the heading. Notice the icon is the circular arrow, so I can put this on a dial. Turning the dial will let me change the heading. And it's also automatically selected the heading reset button, which would align you to your current heading. This would be activated by pushing the dial in. I can of course modify this. I've deleted the button only function, selected the key press equivalent from the menu and allocated it to one of the touch buttons. It'd make more sense obviously to leave it where it was, but I've done this just simply to highlight how configurable and adaptable the Loupedeck can be with the Microsoft Flight Simulator plugin. I've now done the same for the altimeter. I can change my altitude for my autopilot by rotating the dial, and by pressing the button it's effectively altitude hold. Now I'm going to allocate my flight director to one of the RGB buttons. I'll make that green. And so we could continue to build up our configuration. We could have put all of these on one page if we had wanted to, but I think it highlights how quick and easy it is to create and modify and adjust an existing profile. Let's now jump into Sim and see whether any of this actually works. For any of you new to the Loupedeck, you're not restricted to this plugin. Here I've selected a button, create a custom action. I'm going to select keyboard shortcut. So if something's not in the plugin, you can create a keyboard shortcut in Microsoft Flight Simulator, record that here, you can name it what you want, further expanding the range of possibilities for what you can do with this device. It's not a good idea to sit on the runway first thing in the morning, half light with no lights on. So let's get some lights on our VTOL Bonanza, using the config we created earlier. Let's get on some beacon lights. There we go, and we can see that flashing there. Next, our wingtip navigation lights, they're on. Let's try out the taxi lights next, and they're definitely on. And lastly, our flashing strobes, and that's working good as well. Let's turn off our taxi lights and put on our landing lights. When the lights are on, the indicator bar turns green, so you know they're on. Landing lights are not on. There we are. Now we can see that they're on. Great. We can also do a quick internal test to make sure all the switches are working. That's our beacon light on and off, and on again. Let's try the navigation lights. They're working fine. Next up, taxi lights. And let's now try the strobes. Yes, that switch is on. And lastly, the landing lights. Please remember, we are using an aircraft that uses the default mappings for Microsoft Flight Simulator. In the Grand Caravan, on final approach to hobby, let's get our flight director on. There we go. Using the button we configured earlier, and now let's put the autopilot on. And we see AP displaying on our PFD. Now hitting the heading to centralize it, and now heading hold. And now we're flying that heading, and we'll do so until we select an alternative option. A little while later in flight, we're now coming on to final for an ILS approach. I think we're close enough, so we will engage approach. That's now on, and we can see the aircraft is reacting immediately, and on our PFD, our glide slope is active. Of course, we could have added a whole lot more functions, but I think it demonstrates the point. Runway in sight, dead ahead. ILS approach, we're good to continue. The Loupedeck devices are very configurable. They can be your autopilot, your switches, your GPS. It depends how far you want to take it. Use the plugin and keep it simple, expand it with keystrokes, or detailed configuration in SPAD Next, it's up to you. A quick reminder, if you're looking for more detail, then check out my previous videos. Whilst the Loupedeck devices are not inexpensive, you can do so much with them. You are buying a quality device, and if you're not into programming, the plugin works great. The Loupedeck Live S is a great product. Personally, I prefer the more expensive Loupedeck Live, simply because it gives me immediate access to 6 rotary dials. But for those looking for a device like this but not wanting to spend the money, the Loupedeck Live S should be a consideration. Thank you very much for joining me today. Stay well, look after yourselves. I'll see you all again very soon. And bye for now.